So, okay. After that third activation ended, then what did you do?
I retired.
Where was that?
At Westover. Yeah, Westover Air Force Base. Let's see, the last activation, the activation ended, it was in 2010. I think it was October of 2010, if I remember right. And yeah, I think it was October of 10, and then in July, me and my buddy both retired.
And let's see. I'll go to that in a bit. I'm going to. Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Let's see. Yes, this is a touchy subject for me. At Westover in structural maintenance, it was very bad in a lot of instances. It was not a very professionally managed shop. The shop chief at the time when I first was there was an authoritarian. He'd yell at you, not at me, but at the assistant shop chief. Do it because I said so, and yelling and screaming and all of this. And the assistant shop chief, he was overweight, and he had no leadership skills at all, because he was put in there because he was the paint shop chief. And then when they merged the two jobs together, they made him an assistant, and the other one took charge. Well, the turnover of people in our shop would rotate. We had lost in our shop of a little over 40, 50 people. We had lost 138 people in about 6 or 8 years. People coming in, I don't want to work here, and they leave. Between reservists and full-timers, mostly reservists and full-timers. I don't like this place, this is crazy, I'm out of here. This is ridiculous. And they would leave. Well, one of the big problems was decorations. Nobody was writing awards and decorations. So that's something I started to do. I wrote probably 24 in the time that I was there. And this is a shame too, because I had to learn. Nobody could teach me how to write a decoration. The people in my shop didn't know the process. So I had to go to their personnel flight, and I got to know the people in the organization, the administrative side that runs the base, and they helped me learn. So the first one I wrote was my own. I wrote a commendation medal because I had to, because my intention was to get PEP'd. Now a PEP is a promotion enhancement program in the reserves. A person is so wonderful at their job and have such leadership ability, and they're so great and wonderful that they deserve another stripe. Well, your supervisor normally would write a package on this subordinate on how wonderful they are, and it would compete with other people on the base, and they would give out X amount of stripes every year. Well, my supervisor didn't have any writing skills at all, 0. It was like a 6th grader writing a bullet statement, 7 level. That was a bullet statement. That's a skill level. That's nothing. That's like saying you have brown hair, So I had to write my own PEP package, and in order to write a PEP package, you had to have an award or a decoration. So I did the decoration first, put it through the board. It had flown no problem. Then I wrote the PEP package because my boss didn't know how to. All I did was say, "Here, sign this." He said, "Okay." He signed it. It went in. It competed against 31 people, and it was the very #1 package to be PEP. So that's how I made tech sergeant. I went from a staff to a tech through the PEP. I get tired of. I used to get tired of dealing with the lack of leadership and the lack of professionalism. So I'd start doing it myself. I'm not Mr. Wonderful by any means, but I wasn't going to let my career constantly be set back and be waiting for, for promotions. Someone would have to die, and everyone would stand up, move over, and sit down, and that's how you got promoted. No, not a chance. No. Yeah. So when being as a PEP tech sergeant, when the tech sergeant slot opened up, automatically they put you in it. Even though I was wearing tech sergeant, I made tech sergeant. So then later, there was a master sergeant slot that came open, and only one of them. I was the only person in the shop that they could select. And even though I was ready for it, but no one in the shop emphasized their career development, and that's crazy. And so I started telling them, do this, do this. So I started. That was the biggest impact that I had ever had on that shop was emphasizing and motivating people to educate themselves. Do the PME, the professional military education, do the courses, do the requirements, go to school, get your degree, get involved. Don't just sit back and breathe and exist and do the bare minimum requirement. Whatever you got to do and then go home. No, make it a part of your life. Do it because you want to do it. And because I knew what it was like to do it because you had to do it, and I didn't want to do that. So you make it a part of your life.
The difference between the 60 and the 80.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Quality of life questions.
Mm-hmm.
How did you stay in touch with family?
When? Active duty? Active duty phone calls. I would go home once a year for vacation for 2 weeks. That was a young airman, 19, 20, 21, 22. I got once a year fly home. I missed Christmas 5 times in a row because active duty, the way it usually works, and I agree with it too, is usually you get a week off. Single people get New Year off, Christmas, married couples. That's usually how it works. And I think that's a good idea too. I think it makes sense. Families can spend the Christmases together. If you're single, you're not gonna. And then New Year's, well, usually if you're single and you're young and you're gonna be wanting to party for the New Year week. So it was kind of a good balance, but that means every year Christmas time came around, I was at the base, active duty. So 5 Christmases I missed. So it was good coming home.
And what was the food like over the course of?
The food, we call it the Hall of Pain, but it was actually good. The food was very good in North Dakota. It is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then midnight dinner also, if you wanted. It didn't cost you nothing, and you had set hours and schedule, and you could go there, and it's all set. Show your ID card, sign, you're done. Go eat. Go get a plate. Yeah, the food was always good.
You did mention that in basic it was technical.
Basic was horrible. Yeah, basic training. Well, that was the first meal. The rest of the meals were just regular, normal, nothing extravagant, except for Thanksgiving and Christmas. It was nice. But it was just regular, nothing bad, nothing good, just sustainment. But it was balanced. So the military has an extremely smart and balanced diet for people. It regulates and normalizes your body's natural metabolism. It's so many calories in, the right kinds, the right nutrients, all of that. The military has a good plan. Yeah.
Did you have enough supplies?
Supplies for what?
The jobs that you were doing, repair work.
A lot of times we didn't. A lot of times, in the latter years, towards the end of the career, a lot of times you're waiting on something. See, the military went through this big thing where they're getting rid of their own service and they're hiring contractors to do what they used to do. For example, the pharmacy. The pharmacy is where all chemicals go. Paints, thinners, oils, hydraulic fluid, things like that. Any kind of hazardous material is purchased and gone into the pharmacy. It's like a supply building for chemicals. Well, the military used to run it. Never had an issue. It's even before the pharmacy existed. There was just base supply and you'd order stuff. Well, they get rid of military and have a contractor start doing the job. And now, we need to get some. Well, we'll order it. It'll come in 2 days. Well, we need it now. There's always an issue. And it's not only the pharmacy, it's parts in general. When the military is in charge of taking care of our own, it gets done. When contractors are, it'll get done if it's in the contract. And I'm not good with it. That's a I think is a huge problem that the military is dealing with. no matter how many people say, oh, it's a good thing and it's great, and no way is it a good thing when you have contractors taking care of your military all the time. There are advantages, but there's disadvantages. And the risk, to me, especially with terrorism nowadays, these contractors get hired and the fake false identifications and all these things, it'd be too easy for a contractor to get hired as a contractor and get an ID card on base, and now you have, it's just too easy, and it's very bad. I don't agree with it. I don't like the thought of contractors at all doing military work. They even toyed with the idea of aircraft maintenance by contractors. They were toying with it. They've already done it partially. Partially, they've already hired contractors to do some things like washing planes and things. I don't like that at all. Nope.
One removed from the interest of they're not actually interested. One might not be interested as the military.
Right. It's your own plane. This is yours. If it's it's pretty to look at. Oh, it's pretty cool. Now I got to go wash it. A washing plane is a good example. C5s, you're in this big, giant, monstrous hangar, and it takes a day or a day and a half to wash a plane, and then they lube it and clean it and get it all ready. Well, if I'm some terrorist and I know how the process works, I can get a job as a airplane washer, and now boom, you could do anything. I just don't like the loopholes and the security risks that are involved with civilians as far as contractors.
Did you feel any pressure or stress?
When? Let me rephrase that. When did I not? Yeah, there's always stress and pressure, but at Westover there was a lot of stress because of the frustrations of things not being done to take care of your people. And I don't want to keep going on negative. It's too easy. A Christmas party, one year we're swiping our card on the UTA weekend, and there's a bowl with some potato chips in it for 400 people. No Christmas party, I mean, they just didn't know how to take care of the people. We started coordinating them ourselves, and then we get mandated that you're going to include everyone. I say, well, and then you include everyone and 2 people show up other than the people in your shop. Things like that. So the stress factor was always high because all management cared about was go fix a plane. Just go fix a plane. Well, all we cared about was fixing the plane too. That was our life. That was, like, for me, that was very, very, very important. Those planes take care of people. It's personal. Well, you don't have to tell me that, and you don't have to act that way. Pretend that you care about your people. If you don't, you obviously don't, but at least pretend that you do. So a lot of that's why Westover, they had such a high turnover in maintenance. Yeah, I could sit here and talk millions of reasons, but no need to. The thing is, Westover, it was a good experience. It was a good experience, and the class that I had was a huge part of my life. I was able to network, got to meet and know a lot of people. I probably knew there was about 2,500 people on the base between reservists and everyone, 3,000, 2,500. I probably knew about 500 by name, when I see them. I was involved with everything. Base Advisory Council, Squadron Quality Council, and then of course the AFA Reserve Council. I mean, all of these things, you like to be involved, so you get to know people. And that's why you get frustrated when things don't happen.
Right. Was there anything special that you did for good luck?
For good luck? Not really. Not that I can think of.
Was there anyone else around you that did anything that you might have noticed?
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
And other than jiu-jitsu, how did people entertain themselves?
Well, don't forget, Westover Air Force Base is not active duty. It's a reserve base. So they had families, they had lives, they had reservists. We're only there 1 weekend a month, 2 days out of a month. That's nothing. The whole reserve program, it's not designed as an efficient training mechanism, because you're there for 2 days, and the standards that are expected of these 2-day people are the same as active duty. You know, you have, like, for instructional maintenance, you have 18 months to get your 5 level, to get trained and qualified to go work on a plane by yourself in 18 months. Well, active duty, you have 18 months. And a year and a half of day in and day out activities, working on a plane every single day, 18 months. When the reserves, 2 days. 2 days out of the month, you get to work on a plane, in addition to all your regular training things that you have to attend. Fire extinguisher training and self-aid buddy care, all sorts of training. It's so hard to work on a plane. That's why activations are very, very good for the reserves, because these weekend warrior people come in. I know nobody likes that term, but it's a fact. These weekend people come in, and now they're there every day, and they get that hands-on training, and when you're activated, it's great. But if you're not activated and you don't do orders, you're just a weekend person. You don't. It's not reasonable to have the same expectations of a traditional reservist than it is an ART or an active duty member.
Yeah.
It's just not. But everyone works together to make it work somehow. Yeah.
So did you find that like entertainment options or stuff for you to do otherwise was kind of lacking because it was a reserve base and people weren't really there?
Well, yeah, at Westover, there's very, very few. They don't have the things like active duty base has. They did have a Westover club, but the club is it's not as utilized as much as an active duty base, because active duty base, you live on base, and that's where you are. And the club, the heritage of having a club is more ingrained in a person's day-to-day activities, like going to the club. At Westover, you're there for a weekend. You know, you're a weekend person, or you're a civilian. You don't wear the uniform every day, and even wearing of the uniform, it's not that much. It's the lifestyle of I'm a civilian versus I'm a military member. I'm only a military member on a weekend, and that has its. I think that has its negative aspect too. The union and all of the stuff that civilians. It's, you know, the ART program is a very good program, but it's hard to manage. Yeah.
I have to ask, it's probably a negative. Did you ever see any entertainers in the film?
Any entertainers?
Yeah.
Let's see. Not that I can think of. Yeah.
And you said you did go on leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do on leave?
I was just a young guy, you know, 19, 20, 21, whatever. And I'd just go home for 2 weeks, spend time with family, that's all. When I was active duty, I never traveled. I just had my friends. I'll tell you one story. This is a story it's a sidetrack, but it's kind of cute. My buddy Scott Reifenberg, he retired 2 years ago, I think, or last year, 2 years ago. He retired active duty. He stayed active duty. It's a friend from Minot, North Dakota. And when we were young airmen, I think I was a 1-striper, maybe a 2-striper. I mean, you're poor. You're so poor, you couldn't go on a trip if it cost $0.25 to go around the world. At least that's what Clint Eastwood says. I mean, we were so broke. Well, one time we're sitting here in North Dakota. There's nothing. As far as the eye can see, the closest town is like 10 or 12 miles away. The thriving metropolis of Minot is like 30,000 people. You know, there's nothing to do out there. Very, very little. So we're sitting there, we're in the dorm, we're watching TV, me and Scott, and we're just bored out of our minds. Absolutely broke. Flat broke, nothing to spend. We're poorer than anything. we're only making a couple $100 every paycheck anyways, a few hundred. And I mean, we're poor. And so I'm looking at Scott, and Scott's like, Pat, we got to do something. I said, well, let's go for a ride. Let's go drive downtown. He's like, I don't have any gas in my truck. I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, I got a whole thing full of pennies. I said, we're going to roll pennies. I'll pay for the gas and pennies, but you got to pay for it. He's like, I don't care. So we said that we rolled like $10 of pennies, like 20 rolls of pennies. Then we go up to the gas station. And that's when you would pump your gas first and then go pay. And so we said there, pump $10 in. They gave him like a half a tank, 3/4 tank of freaking gas. So he goes up to the cashier outside, and the place is packed. I get out of the car, I yell, hey everybody, look, he's paying for gas and pennies. And he's got his big handful of pennies. Everybody looks at him. I just figured I'd share that. Hey everyone, look, he's paying with pennies. Embarrass him. Things like that is what buddies do. You know, harmless fun. Harmless fun. I mean, there's stories. I can sit here and tell you so many stories.
Well, now is the time. My next question is, over the course of your service, do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
But that's one. That's one right there. Another, this is an unusual one. In North Dakota, they the people, the local people out there, like to race on a dirt track. And they'll take a little small car, gut it out, empty it, put a roll cage in it, and they'll race the dirt track. Well, I bought this little Vega, little small tiny Vega, had a 4-cylinder, and I bought it for a wintertime car. I had a race car. I had my Nova, it was a race car, and then I had this little Vega. Paid $250 for it. Well, one day my buddy George, he's in the back seat, and Scott is about 240 pounds. He's a big guy. We're sitting there driving, and we're in this car, and we're being mischievous. We started driving around and going through a cornfield. A wheat field. And we cut through the wheat field, and wheat. All you see is wheat and grasshoppers. We're just driving through a farmer's wheat field, and we get up back on the dirt road. And then you look, and we're like, oh my God. And if you look from the top down, the field has strategically placed these huge boulders. And you can see the path that the car went. I just missed this one, just missed that one, just missed that one. Unbelievable. Never even knew they were there. So we get out, and we're like, wow, that's unbelievable. So we start driving back. We're on the dirt road, and we're driving. Wheat fields as far as the eye can see. We're driving. I'm like, well, let's go over this way. I cut off the dirt road, and it looks like it's about a foot drop, you know. It was a 9-foot drop in this big giant wheat field. It hit the ground, popped the tire, and rolled the car over. And we're sitting there upside down. The car's still running. Nervous. The young guys, you know, we're nervous and everything. And the car rolled. Scott had his arm on the door, and it rolled on his arm over the dirt, which was he was fine. It didn't hurt or nothing. But we sat there, and the car's running, and we're like, all of a sudden it starts sputtering, and bang! It backfires and it turns off. And we're like, are you guys okay? Is everyone okay? Everyone okay? We're like, we're fine, but I smell gas. Bam! We're out of the car. The windshield was about this big. We all got out of the car. And wow, you know, couldn't believe it. So all three of us took the car, and we flipped it back up, and it wouldn't start. You know, it wouldn't start at all. We didn't think about it. I didn't know why it wouldn't, but it just didn't. But all the oil seeped into the cylinder heads, so therefore there's no way that the compression can happen. That's why it wouldn't start. So we walked back to the base. We get back, and we went to someone picked us up, brought us over, had us go to the hospital to get checked out. Everyone was fine. No issues at all. First thing they did to Scott was they said, "You okay?" And they put a neck brace on him to bring him there. And then they take neck brace off. Says, "Your neck okay?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it's fine." "Oh no, don't do that, don't do that." You know, he's like, "It's fine." No one got hurt at all. But so we go back, and now we got to move the car. And when we got there, the farmer was there with his kid. He had a 12-year-old kid. It was 10 or 12, probably 10 years old, 10, 12-year-old kid. And farmer was sitting there. I said, "Yeah." I said, "We went over the side, you know, and popped the tire and all of that." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, I looked at the farmer. I said, would you be interested in the car? He says, yes, I would. He says, we'll race that. We'll bang that out and we'll gut it and put a roll cage in. I said, you can have it. So I gave him the car. So his kid goes in the car. 12-year-old kid climbs in it, puts the key, pumps the gas, it started right up. Boom! Smoke as far as the eye could see it smoke because it's burning all that oil out. And the kid's sitting there with his head out the window, driving his car back to his dad's farm. Yeah, and that was pretty good. Yeah, I signed the title over to him. Yeah, it was $250 special. It was a wintertime beater. We didn't care. But that was a story. That was a fun story. Yeah, there's lots of stories like that though. Yeah, I ran the car that I had was a Nova. It was a 75 Nova SS. It had dual quads. I put dual quads on it. It was a buddy of mine, John Couture, owned it in high school. And 3 days after we graduated high school, he went in the Navy. He worked on the Eisenhower. And so the car sat there for 6 months. So I called him up and I said, John, I'm going to buy the car. So I bought his Nova. I mean, we had so many high school memories in his car. So I bought it from him I told him $1,900. I gave him 15. And I drove it from Langley, Virginia, where he was stationed, all the way to North Dakota. Now, I had 411 gears, so I could do about 55 miles an hour max. Drive all the way to North Dakota there. Well, I kept that car my whole military career. And then I drove it from North Dakota back to Connecticut. And I flew back and I flew the last time to go home. Well, when I drove it from North Dakota back to home, it took me 43 hours. I did 20 hours, 20 or 23 hours the very first time. And I slept overnight and did another 10 and another 10. No, I slept for an hour, did 10 more hours, and then slept overnight and did the last 10. But while I was in North Dakota, that car was, I used to race all the time and get in mischief and all of that, but nothing ever very, very bad. Yeah.
Were there any pranks that you would pull on your friends or your friends pull on?
Of course not.
So
No, at Westover, I mean, everyone, I'll talk about active duty. When I was getting ready to leave active duty, there was a buddy of mine, Frank Sweetman. I could sit here and talk for hours. Frank Sweetman, he had an old, was it a Chevelle? Yeah, I think it was a Chevelle. And I had my Nova, and we were good, gearheads. We were good buddies. Well, he was leaving 30 days before me. So I set it up with, everyone, whenever anyone would leave, we'd haze them. We'd hose them down with a water hose, or we'd do something crazy. Well, and it was always fun. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't bad. It was like our heritage. I mean, it was tradition. So Frank, I didn't know, but so the last day Frank's going to be in the shop, he walks in the hangar, and all of us are standing they're all standing in a big circle, and Frank is standing in the middle. And I walk in, and I had a gallon of petroleum jelly, like Vaseline, the end they use on the engines, and it's a gallon. And I got this in my hand, and I'm just smiling, laughing. I'm looking at him, and he's smiling. So I put it down, and we walk up, and a couple of us grabbed him, and I grabbed his legs, and I'm holding his legs as hard as I could, and he's struggling, and they're putting him in a chair, and they're tying him down into this chair, and duct taping him in his chair. And I've used every ounce of strength I had to hold him down. And finally, they get him all in there. He's tied up, and I'm totally beat. But he's tied up. Well, then everyone grabbed me. Frank set it up so that we would be done together at the same time, and I did not even know. I had no idea. So they grabbed me, and I'm weak now, and I'm fighting and struggling. They tied me up in a chair, and they put both of us back to back and tied us together. And then there come the punishment. They started hosing us down and laughing at us, and then they went over and took that gallon of petroleum jelly and reached right in and right on our heads and mushed it right in our heads, It was, I will never ever forget that day. It was great. It was horrible. Our uniforms were trashed and destroyed. But we were such a mess, and they were hosing us down and making fun. It was just great. And when we finally got done, it was really, Frank was really, really a great guy. It took me about 3 weeks to get all the petroleum jelly out of my hair. Maybe that's why it all left. I don't know. I washed it 10 times that very day with Dawn detergent, trying to get it out, and over and over, and it took forever to get that stuff out of my hair.
You were double crossed.
Yeah, I was double crossed by Scott. It was great. Yeah. I mean by Frank Sweetman.
All right. What did you think of officers or fellow soldiers?
Officers usually kept to themselves. They had our respect. A couple officers in particular, Colonel Mertz. Colonel Mertz was I was at Westover. I was always involved in stuff. I taught squadron council, base council, all of these other things. But active duty, I was also involved with the first sergeant. I'd either donating blood or working with the Red Cross or doing food pantries, the food soup kitchens, and going to the youth center and building a playground and disassembling it and making a new one, all these things. I used to be involved doing stuff active duty as well. And Colonel Mertz really looked out for me. He came to bat for me a couple times, and it was good. Colonel Mertz had a lot of my respect. And our first sergeant, I wish I could remember his name. It's been so long. I keep thinking Sergeant Andre, some basic training. But the first sergeant was good. We had a few of them that rotated in and out. But the friends that you made, I still keep in touch with some of my active duty friends to this day. Yeah, Chris Gilbred, Carol Thorpe, Scott Reifenberg, and Mark Hansen, then Scott Leidy and Mitch Martin. I've been talking with them. One thing that we have now that people didn't have was Facebook. Mm-hmm. And Facebook now, we're able to contact all of our old active duty friends and all of that, and it works. And that's one reason why we all got together. Yeah.
Did you keep a journal of the service?
No, I wish I did. No, but it's kind of funny. I have a letter. Well, I don't have the letter. I've got the envelope. But I wrote a letter in 1989 to my dad. Just a letter, hey, how's it going? And I addressed it, Dad Cassidy, with his address. Yeah, and he saved it. He just gave that to me there last week.
Okay. Do you recall the day your service ended?
Well, which one? There's 2 days.
We'll go both.
Active duty was July 30, 1991. Or excuse me. Yeah, July 30, 1991. That's correct. Was my last day of active duty service when I left North Dakota. And I actually drove home. I drove the Nova home when I finally left. I had flown 3 months before that. And then the other one was also July 30. Yeah, it was also July 30th of 2010. Yeah, active duty, I got out July 30, 91, and reserve was July 30, 2010. Yeah. Yeah.
And what was that like? What was being discharged like?
It was a good feeling. Yeah, with active duty, there was a feeling of concern, of unknown, because I didn't have my job anymore, waiting for me when I got out. So that was like, how am I going to handle this when I get home? What am I going to do and all of that? Build a resume and learn. But it was a good feeling because I was at North Dakota my whole enlistment. I'd never seen anything else. And it was frustrating. You wanted to experience more. And yeah, I felt good to leave. Everyone always wanted, I want to get out of here. I want to get out of here. Everyone wanted to get out of there. But a lot of people would retire and would move there. They retire out of the military and you go live downtown. It was very common because it's quiet.
And where were you when you were discharged from active duty?
I was in North Dakota.
And the reserves?
Westover Air Force Base. Yeah.
days and weeks after that? After ending your
After active duty, I was unemployed for 5.5 months, just looking for a job. And that's what I did. That was my mission in life. And that's when I went to Westover. And then after I got out of Westover, I only retired just a few months ago. So I'm just loving it. I am. It's a shame to say this, but it's a good time to get out of the military. There's so many changes right now in the military that are happening. Some things I'm not good with, and now that I'm a civilian, it doesn't matter. I don't have to deal with it, but I have my own personal views and opinions. Like with, it's the military culture, like the Marines, I know they're having a hard time with the same-sex things, the gays in the military. That's a huge issue. The Marine Corps, I believe they're having a very difficult time adapting to it. I don't want any part of it. I don't think it's just my opinion. I don't think it's a good thing. It's forcing people. It's not just working in the military. It's sharing your life. Like I'm talking about life stories here, and now they can openly express this and openly express that, and it's going to cause cultural differences in the military, and it's forced because you're in the military. You got to go by what the rules are. So I don't have to go by the rules. I'm retired now, and it's a good time to get out of the military. A lot of changes. We're not working as smart as we could. Smart doesn't mean do more with less by a long shot. But it's just, we could be doing things, I think, a little bit better. Yeah.
And you went to work after that, after you left Westover, was that here?
When I was at Westover, remember, I got hired in Westover in '92 as a full-time civilian and a reservist. I left 10 years ago. I left my full-time civilian Westover job and stayed as a reservist. And that was at the same time when I came to DCMA, which I am now. So I never left my DCMA job. I'm still here, and I'm going to be here for a long time, I hope. But I did leave the reserve weekend when I just retired in July.
And what's your job here now?
I'm in quality. I'm a senior quality assurance rep.
Okay. You talked about your close friendship.
Yeah. One of the things that I don't think I touched on yet was with Iraq. I may or may not have mentioned it. Yeah. Okay.
So Iraq.
So Iraq, real quick. Now that I work in DCMA, I signed up. I volunteered to do a CCAS mission to go overseas for 6 months. I did 6 months over there. Now this is as a civilian, as a government employee. I was still in the reserves, but I didn't go over as military capacity. But I did work directly with the military. And they did a couple articles on stuff that happened over there. But some of the things, we would go over there to validate and to make sure that the contractor is doing what they're supposed to be doing to take care of our troops. And I found a few things that they weren't. For example, water testing. They weren't testing the water for bacteria the way they're supposed to. They weren't doing it at all in some cases. And I found cases where it was bad, and there's articles on that online and everything. So I wrote them a corrective action request, and which ends up costing them lots of money and bonuses. It was great. It was great to address it. But the electrocution issue, getting information for that, these are huge things. But one thing I did when I was in Iraq was, since I was there, and I was working at least 12 hours a day, but I coordinated through my commander, and he gave me permission to do a jiu-jitsu class, because the guys they have hardly anything out there in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
So they did have a building and a room that was big enough for us to do a class. So I started a jiu-jitsu class in there. I had 50 military guys in my class, all Army. And then when one group left, another group would come in, and it was just absolutely phenomenal. And I still kept in touch with a few of those guys. But when I did leave, when I left at the end of my 6-month thing, they made me a plaque. I have it with me. They had pictures. I have all sorts of pictures on that CD.
Yeah.
But they did make me a little plaque and appreciation, everything. It was so meaningful. But they used it. They used what I was able to teach them. There was a girl in the class. Her nickname was Cookie. And women in the military are not. It's not a good thing in the Asian, and not Asian, in the world over in the desert. You know, the culture out there, you know, they don't like women and they don't have the same type of respect that we do in the West world. Well, this girl was standing on a tank, and one of the Iraqi soldiers that we're trying to train and work with, he looks at her and he just, bam, he smashed her and threw her right off the tank. And that's a long way to fall. Well, while she was in the air, she turned around and bam, did a face fall, just like I taught her. She got off, brushed herself out. She looked at the guy. She said, "What's that? You got more than that?" You know. So she came to me that day. She goes, Sensei Patrick, let me tell you what happened. You know, she's all excited about it, but it was good, because they were able to use it. You know.
Yeah, empowering.
Yeah, that was nice.
And okay, so in Iraq, how did you stay in touch with family for those 6 months?
I was able to call. I had a line that I was able to contact. Yeah.
And what was the food like there?
The food where I was, the food was okay. Now in some of the other defects, the dining facilities, the food was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal food at some of the places, like in Baghdad and some of the other spots. But and then there were other places that the military, like if they would run their own, sometimes it wasn't that good, you know. And in a lot of cases, our military guys are eating MREs when they have to, you know. And it varies depending on where you go overseas. It varies. A lot of places aren't that great, and a lot of them are. But there's a whole bunch of places to pick from.
And have you joined any veterans organizations?
I'm still a member of AFA, Air Force Association, and I probably will be for a long time. Yeah.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Absolutely. Unless someone has lived the military life, the only thing they'll understand is what public affairs shows them or the TV shows them, you know, until you live the life. There was a movie that was out. It was called Starship Troopers. And that movie, there was something in there that I thought was kind of neat. It showed that the only people that were allowed to vote were citizens. And the only way to become a citizen is to serve in the military. And I thought that was kind of neat. It was an interesting twist that you had to earn your right to vote. And I thought that was kind of admirable.
Yeah. Do you attend reunions or?
Military reunions and stuff? Well, right now the Chiefs Council at Westover, the retired chiefs get together every Thursday, or the first Thursday of every month. They get together at lunchtime at the club on base at Westover. And I'm probably going to be showing up there once in a while, because I have to take time off to go because I still work here.
Yeah. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
It's, let's see, I'm trying to think of, it's developed and evolved my sense of integrity and responsibility. If I had never been in the military, I'd just be another person with my own way of thinking, and I don't think it'd be as structured. Military life, it taught me how to be responsible and how to handle those responsibilities.
And is there anything you would like to add that we've not covered in this interview?
This has been a long interview, so I can't think anything else off the top of my head. But the one thing is, with the military, though, that there is one thing, that the relationships you make in the military, especially if you're young when you first enlist, you'll keep it with you forever. You know, and if you apply yourself, it'll impact your career, no matter where you go and what you do. You know, and it's definitely a good thing. I would recommend to anyone to join active duty military if they had not experienced it. If you've been in the military and you're getting tired of the way things are and this and that, well, that's fine. But to initially go in and learn and experience it, I would highly recommend it. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, I would like to thank you for your service and also taking the time to do an interview.
No problem. Thanks. Great. So we're gonna briefly talk about a couple of little memorabilia. Just a few things that I have kind of kept over the years. This is my little coin collection. It's not all of them, but it's the majority of them. And each coin was given to me either by a general or for a specific, like this one here, I was given because I saved someone's life. They were choking. I did a Heimlich maneuver. This one here was given by General Petraeus. This one here is General Magnus. General Sherrod over here. This one was for going to deploying over to DCMA overseas. That's the wing coin, the commander's coin everyone that deploys usually gets that. So a lot of these are first sergeants. I mean, a lot of these were just represent experiences that I had while I was active duty or in reserves, or in some cases overseas, you know, doing the Iraq thing. So everyone knows about coins. It's not a big secret, but that's my little coin collection that I've always saved. Set that down. And okay. Alright, we'll take that one. Yeah, that one's fine. This here is just a little plaque. This was given to me by my jiu-jitsu class in Iraq when I started the class over there. The guys did this, and there's pictures that we have on the disc that shows lots of pictures of it. Those guys are very, very important to me. And it's a certificate of appreciation, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's very meaningful. It says nothing. I mean, these guys did this for me while they're in the desert. They found a way to do it, middle of nowhere. It's very meaningful. I can grab these if you want. Let's see this one here. This is a plaque that was given to me when I left active duty. It's a little weathered, but I've cherished it over the years. It shows a KC-135 refueling a B-52, and it's connected by the refueler. Well, the refueler is actually a rivet, which is a rivet stem, which is the shop that I worked in, structural maintenance, rivets and stuff. And the tail numbers that are painted on here is 332 and 011. That's the actual tail numbers of the last two planes that I worked on while I was active duty. For Patrick Cassidy, thanks for a job well done, you know, from aircraft structural maintenance. That was 87 to 91. And the thing is, Fred Gardner was one of the guys that made this for me. He did a lot of work on this, and my supervisor and some other people. They made these, I cut it out the shape of North Dakota, and it was very personal. So I talked the story earlier. I said I treasured this, but that was the plaque. Let's see. I got my little letter here for Dad Cassidy. That was some '89. And this here this is just one of the coins that was given to me from Westover. The guys, they actually manufactured this themselves from a machine shop. They made it themselves. And best luck on your future endeavors from the men and women of the 439 SMXS. And there's another one I have at home that goes with this. And then the last thing, I'll grab this here. This is called a Sterling engine. Now, Sergeant Gardner, my buddy Fred there, he made this for me. And there's another thing that I wish I could go get, that I have a biplane that was made for me also. And the function of this is the vacuum that's inside this globe. When it heats up, when you light this on fire, you light this, there's fuel underneath it. You light it and it heats up the gas that's on the inside of the vacuum. And the pressure will actually initiate a piston. It'll actually run as a piston engine based on a flame, when you have a little flame that's running in there. And he made this with machine shop. The machinist at Westover made the pieces and everything. The tolerances are extremely tight in order for it to work, because what it is an expansion of the gases. Expansion and contraction is what's going to actuate the piston. So he made this for me for my military retirement back in July. And that's Fred Gardner. You're going to interview him later. And there's one last thing that I would like to get, but it's back at my desk. And it'll take about 5 seconds to get. Okay. The last thing I did want to mention is very significant is the biplane. Now, Fred had made this for me. Sergeant Gardner made this for me when I retired. And this plane is made of aircraft stuff. The very front is a sealed nut. It's a sealed nut using a fuel cell. This is a bearing off of the front wheel of a C5. This is all scrap stuff. It's all no good stuff, but he used it and makes it himself. The pistons here are all castle nuts. The gears are made out of nut plates, O-rings, or the wheels. The landing gears, nut plates. The fuselage is an igniter plug out of an engine. And the stainless steel, obviously, it's not stainless, but the steel itself is one of the materials that we use in sheet metal. And it's named as fabrication plate. But he makes this by hand. He's made a few of them, not many of them. Not many people get them. But it took me about 20 years to get it from him. But I wanted to distinguish it because Fred he's very, very talented, and making things like this is reflective. He's made one for Howie Ray when he retired. Rich Stula and Tom Belinda, the 3 other people, has had one of these.
Can you turn so I can see the back?
Sure. No problem. Yeah. It's all welded together. Yeah, this is pretty nice. So it is. To me, I wanted to make sure we distinguish this. This is very meaningful. So, there. Now I'm all set.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We're good.